Hi everyone, it's Lisa from IDreaminSoap. Welcome to my channel and thanks for dropping by. Today's soap is my entry for the April 2020 soap challenge hosted by Amy Warden. Now this month we're doing the Tall and Skinny Shimmy. Our guest teacher for the month is Tatiana Serko, and as normal there are two categories. For the regular category, each of the segments of your shimmy soap needed to be made with just one single pour. Whereas for the advanced category, there needed to be a minimum of 3 pours to make each one of those little segments. I'm entering the advanced category for my soap, and the inspiration for me was the inside of a beehive. So come on, let's go make some soap.
For my Tall and Skinny Shimmy soap, I want to do sort of the inside of a beehive. So what I'm doing first of all is making some tiny weeny little bees that are going to go into the middle. So I've just got some yellow and black soap dough that I've just rolled out pretty thin. I always find with my soap dough that it's easier to roll it between bits of plastic film, and I tend to reuse these bits of film over and over again, and I find they actually get better the more you use them because they get less sticky. So I'm just going to trim my two colours up so I'm dealing with approximately the same size shapes. And then I'm just going to roll them thinner and thinner and then just gradually layer the black and yellow together to make some little bee bodies. Once I've got my wafers of black and yellow, I'm then just going to cut some pretty thin strips off, and I'm just going to squeeze one end of them so I've got sort of like a more rounded end and a more pointed end, and that will actually turn into the bodies of the bees. Now these are really tiny because the Tall and Skinny Shimmy is quite a small bar of soap, and I need these to fit inside some of the shimmy elements. I then took some of the remaining stripy bits of soap dough that I had and chopped them up into pieces to make some bigger bee bodies that were going to go onto the top of the finished soap. Now, I decided that if I tried to make wings out of soap dough and then stick them onto the bee bodies, that was going to be a bit of a disaster. So I decided instead that I was going to pipe them on. So I've just mixed up a very small amount of white soap batter. And then I used a round writing tip, a number 5 for the lower wing, and a small leaf tip, this was a Wilton 101, for the upper wing. So I mixed my soap batter up until it came to about a medium trace, and then just let it sit, stirring every now and again until it got to a nice thick pipeable consistency. And then I've just popped it into my piping bag, and I'm just going to start piping on the wings. I had to pipe the 2 little wings on one side of the bees first of all. And then I needed to find something to balance those little bees on to lift the wet wing off of the side so I could pipe on the second one. And luckily my soap planer was just the right size. So after I'd piped the wings on, I just let them set up for a couple of hours so they wouldn't get damaged when they were put into the soap. So now onto the soap itself, and goodness me, look at all of those colours. So the plan for my soap is that I want to have 3 different sort of golden honey type colours, and with each of those colours I want to have like a mini ombre, a light and dark version. So I'm going to be using brushed copper, black gold and golden shimmer. All of these are from Mica Mama. And then I want to have an outline in a nice yellow colour around each of the segments. Now yellows can tend to dull a little bit, especially if you have a soap that goes through gel. So I'm going to try and combat that by taking my magic yellow as my main colour and just giving it a little boost by having a touch of neon yellow from Mica Mama and some yellow oxide from Sensory Perfection. Now this technique is another one of those ones where you need to keep a really fluid batter, and therefore it's vitally important that you pre-mix your micas with some oil so that you can disperse them really nicely into your soap batter without having to mix them in with this stick blender. Now I'm really not a fan of single-use anything, but it is much more straightforward to use some disposable cups for this technique. I'd always much rather just use my little stainless steel mixing pots and my normal jugs that I've got. But the cups are good because they enable you to mix up all your different colours, but also you can squidge them a bit so you get a nice pouring spout with the cups. So I wasn't keen, but I did get some, but at least I did make sure that the ones that I bought were fully recyclable. So mine haven't got any of that sort of funny plastic coating or anything that you get with those coffee cups that you can't recycle easily. So I've measured out the amount of mica that I need and I've dispersed it all in a little bit of olive oil, and then I'm going to be ready to start mixing up my soap. And to make sure that I can keep track of which cup is which, I've actually written on the side of them what I'm mixing up into each one. Now this is one of those techniques where you need to mix up your entire soap batter all in one go. And that's because you need to maintain this thin trace throughout the entire pour. And if you tried to split it out and mix up some bits first and then some bits later on, the lower down bits are going to set up and you're going to lose that shimmy effect. Now you really want the lightest trace possible, and often it's advised to just hand stir until you get to emulsion. However, I'm quite lucky. My stick blender has lots of variable speeds to it. I can alter the top and knock it right down to that lowest speed of 1. And then also on the side with my buttons, as I push my button, the more I press it in, the faster it goes. The less I press it in, the slower it goes. So I have a lot of control over my stick blender. So we're going for emulsion at this stage, and it's really vital that you're confident at spotting emulsion. If you're not, I've done a whole video on trace and how to spot emulsion. I'm going to leave a link to that in the description below. But the 2 most common reasons for failing with this technique are not blending to emulsion. People are so desperate to get a thin trace that they don't emulsify their batter. And then everything will just completely fail because you won't end up with soap. And then secondly, having a batter that's too thick. And again, remember, blend to emulsion now because you've still got to muck around and mix all your colours in and everything, and that all takes time. If you get your batter at all thick, then you're going to lose that shimmy effect in the middle of your soap. So I am literally just doing tiny little blasts with my stick blender on low and then stirring and checking. Tiny little bit of blend, stir and check, and really making sure that as soon as I hit a definite emulsion, I'm going to stop and start splitting everything out. Now, I know I've been going on about this and emulsion for a little while, but really, honestly, guys, this is the thing that is the most important thing to get this technique right. So let's stop and have a little check. And can you see on the base of my stick blender that after a little while the oils and the lye solution are starting to split away from each other, so we're not emulsified yet. So just a tiny weeny little bit more of very gentle blending or hand stirring or even just waiting, and then we'll check again. And then this time we do end up with an emulsion that's holding, but we can see that it's still very light and we don't have a trace yet. So perfect. So we're now ready to start splitting everything up and mixing in our colours. So I'm going to go back to a plan that I worked out right at the start when I was calculating the amount of oils to make up and the amount of mica to use. And now I'm looking at my soap column because I've got everything combined together, so I know how much to pour out for each of my cups. And I'm just going to go through and divide everything out according to my plan. Now, when I made my soap batter up, I deliberately made up a little bit more than I need, just so I can ensure that as I divide everything out, I have exactly the amounts that I want to pour into each of those cups. And then I'll thoroughly mix in all of the micas. And then I'll just spend a little bit of time adjusting colours where necessary. Remember, for each of my golden colours, I want to have sort of a lighter and a darker version. So I will add little touches of titanium dioxide where necessary. So after all our preparation, we're now ready for our pour. I'm going to be using 2 of my golden colours twice and then one of them 3 times. So each time I need a colour, I'm going to be pouring off the exact amount that I want into a smaller cup and then pouring that out, just so I can make sure that each of my segments are even. My fragrance oil, which is honey wash from Gracefruit in the UK, does accelerate trace a little bit. So therefore I'm literally going to drop in the correct amount into each individual bit of batter immediately before I make the pour. And because my soap is in the advanced category for the soap challenge this month, I need to make 3 pours in each of the little segments of the shimmy. So therefore, for each of my colours, I'll be making a wall pour, so pouring down the side of the mould for the 3 colours. And then I'll be flipping the mould onto its other side and then doing the same throughout the rest of the soap. So for each segment of my shimmy, I'm going to make sure I've got my colours divided up correctly. And at that point, I'll then flip my mould over, quickly add in my fragrance oil and make my pour. So I'll just speed this up a little bit and just maybe add some music, just so you can watch the rest of the pour without me going on in your ear. Now every now and again I want to drop one of my little bee embeds in. I want to try as far as possible to get it so it sits nicely within one of the blobs. I'm only putting in 2 bees because I don't want them to cause the shimmy to distort at all. And then I'll just carry on with normal with the rest of my pour. And you can see here I've changed my method of tipping my mould. Me just lifting it from one side to the other and having to pour with the other hand, I don't know, I was just finding it awkward. So I'm actually rotating my mould now so I can get a good access and pour nice and easily. So off we'll go again to complete the rest of the pour, and I will drop in 1 more bee just as we get to the last segment before the top of the mould. So I'm just going to finish off the top of the soap by taking the last little dregs of that fluid batter and kind of sort of drawing a honeycomb-ish type design on the top. And then I'm going to take those extra bee bodies that I made for the top of my soap and pop them on the top of the soap, and then finish them off by piping on some little bee wings. And then as normal, I'm going to cover the soap and wrap it in a towel. I'll pop it in my oven with it preheated to 170 degrees Fahrenheit, 75 degrees Celsius. Turn the oven off as soon as I put the soap in and leave it in there overnight. I unmoulded the soap after 24 hours, so let's have a look at the cut. Oh, look at that, I really like it. Those little bees are so cute, sitting in their own little sections there. And I've actually got a really good shimmy going down the middle. You can see where the little sort of sections push against each other and do like a little S design. So overall, I'm really pleased with it. I'll just put a little bit of music on for the rest of the cut, and then we'll look at some photos just to finish off. And then to finish off, here are some pictures of the final soap. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you like the soap. If you did, it would be great if you left me a thumbs up. If you'd like to see what I'm making in the future, why not subscribe to my channel and perhaps even click that notification bell. If you've got any questions or comments, then just leave them in the comments section below. I'm really good at getting back to people, so I will reply to you. Thanks for watching everyone. Happy soaping!